So how you doing? Dwayne Groom here, your guide through the program. I wanted to take a moment and remind you what you did last week and continue to support you in your weekly activities. Now, last week we had the pre-listing package, how to do successful open houses, reactive prospecting, converting the ad call to the face-to-face meeting, protecting the address, and bonifying the buyer appointment. And this week we're going to go over the sales psychology, the sales process, and probably most importantly, the listing presentation. Now, there's a good chance that today's class may be the most valuable to you. And you know why? Because we do a tremendous amount of workshopping and we work closer together. I will also introduce the comparison chart as well as how to use a net sheet. So take a blank piece of paper if you're in your office, and let's go over the 3 rules of the program first. Why? Because we tend to have selective hearing, and let me tell you a story. There's an old woman in a park. She comes across a man about 20 years younger than her, and she asks him, "So what brings you here today?" And he says, "I just got out of jail. I was in jail for 25 years for murdering my wife." And after graphic details of the event, he pauses. And then the old woman says, "Ah, so you're single, are you?" As I said, selective hearing or what? So the 3 rules again that we went over in lesson 1 and 2 are this. Number 1, your stats must be turned into your assistant team captain no later than, you got it, 9:30 a.m. each week, right? Number 2, we must book at least 3 listing appointments a week. And number 3, I haven't talked about this much yet, but if you did not do your weekly activities completely, then take your strike gracefully. So if you have 3 penalties, you may have to fill out your strike letter today, and I would encourage you to do that. Remember, it's designed to make you more money or to show you how to make more money with accountability, and that's by bringing your weakest link to the surface. Then the trainer can work with you to improve on that. See, I'm trying to remove the option to fail. So let's take control, gang, and admit that this will be your best week ever, all right? Okay, what I want to talk about first today is the sales psychology. The psychology of the salesperson and the psychology of the sellers. And if you look at your notes, you'll see that, number 1, the psychology or the thinking of the salesperson is going into the appointment thinking, I will take it if I choose. And of course, for the sellers, we want to make sure that their thinking is that they will listen to what you have to say. Number 2 is you have to understand that your thinking needs to be that I will sell myself first. That way, the sellers will look at you and go, well, he seems like a good person. The third part is you want to find a problem, or if you have to, create one. And you can do that by asking the sellers this. If there was one thing you could change about your home, what would it be? And, in their mind, you want to get them to say, I never looked at it that way, because, they don't understand how a buyer might look at their home. And we're just trying to plant some seeds here so they can understand everybody's different views of their property. The fourth part is you want to have in your mind a way to solve the problem so that once they see that there could be a problem, it could be a timing thing, it could be kitchen's too small, whatever it is, you want them to think, you know what, I can't afford to lose any money. And finally, number 5 is your goal is to get a yes or a no, which is better than a maybe that never materializes. And in the thinking of the sellers is they're feeling comfortable enough and safe enough to make a decision. So a question I have for you is this: what do you bring on a listing appointment? And the answer to that is everything. And you dress like $1,000,000. So now that we understand the sales psychology, let's go to the beginning of the appointment. I call it the lead-in to the sales process. For example, one of the things we need to do is to focus on the appointment. In other words, live in the moment. So we pull up in front of the house, and I recommend that you park across the street, maybe in front of the house, but for sure not in the driveway. Why? What if there's an oil leak in your car? Make sure you're dressed like $1,000,000, like I said, and focus when you pull up in front of the house. As soon as you get there, you get out of your car, you're dressed great, dressed professional, then I would like to see you strut to the door confidently, like you do it 10 times a day. Once you get to the house, ring the bell. By the way, if it's busted, knock. Just kidding. Smile when you see the sellers. Pay them a sincere compliment. Take them to the kitchen table. By the way, that's where everyone goes to make decisions. That's where the friends go. And you have more control over the listing appointment than if you're sitting in the living room and everybody's spread out all over the place, and especially if they turn on the TV. Once you're at the kitchen table, small talk. Talk about anything but real estate. And once real estate is brought up, and by the way, if they're talking a little bit much, then you might want to bring it up yourself. What we're going to do then is once real estate is brought up, you go to the sales process, which actually is the first page of your listing presentation. So the first page of your listing presentation, the sales process, let's go over that quickly here. You're going to see 7 parts to it. And the first thing is you're going to actually tell them what you're going to do before you do it to make them feel comfortable. And on that page are the following 7 steps. Number 1 is a series of questions. That way you can save them some time, and also give them the right advice. The second step on there is to preview the property. That way you can point out all the features and see the condition of the home. The third part is your marketing plan. It'll actually show them how you get the job done. And by the way, this is how you earn your commissions. Number 4, price and estimate of net. This will show how long it will take to sell and how much you have to work with. Number 5 is explain all the forms, so they can make a decision based on facts. There's nothing worse than all of a sudden getting right to the end. Looks like they're going to sign. You open up the contract, and all of a sudden they get cold feet and they don't want to sign just yet. So sometimes it's better just to give them a bird's eye view of what it is first. Number 6, you'll address any questions. This way you can address all their concerns also. See what's holding them back. In other words, educate them. Number 7 is finally make a mutual decision, which is a result of the first 6. So again, your first page is just going to be 7 points. 1, series of questions. 2, preview the property. 3, marketing plan. 4, price and estimate of net. 5, explain the forms. 6, address any questions. And 7, mutual decision. The neat thing here is this is actually a layout of your listing presentation. So page 2 would of course be this series of questions. Now, before we carry on too far, I want to talk about a couple of salesmanship ingredients, which basically comes down to the difference between talking and selling. Now, there's 4 areas or 4 ingredients here. The first one is names. People love to hear their names. The second part is questions, which is the next part we're getting into. And you know what? If you ask yourself this question, how do you control a conversation? The best way is just to ask a question. Most people love to talk. Let them talk. The third part is visuals. In other words, if we're using visuals for objection handling techniques or our presentation, our marketing, you know, they say that a picture is worth, what is it? $1,000 exactly. F&V, which stands for facial expressions and voice inflections. So here's what we are trying to communicate. You are on stage and you must learn how to act. And some keys to questioning the seller are as follows. Number 1, use open-ended questions to get expanded information, right? Number 2, we'll pre-plan the questions. I'm going to give them to you. This is the great part. So you're going to have them pre-planned. Third, you want to write down all the answers. You know, the listing presentation is designed to keep you on track, and I'm going to say that again in a moment. Anything that you need to write on, maybe you should have copies of it in the back of your book. Number 4, only ask what applies to them and confirm their answers. Number 5, your questions that I'm going to give you become progressively bolder. Now remember this, the main reason we ask questions is to get the seller to talk. And the greatest salespeople in the world are not the best talkers. They are the best listeners. So let's get into these questions, which is page 2 of your listing presentation. What I'd like you to do is ask yourself how you feel about asking each question. I hope all of them you're comfortable with asking. The first one is, when did you first start thinking about selling? Number 2, how long have you lived here? 3, what was your original purchase price? 4, what improvements have you made? 5, if there was one thing you could change about your home, what would it be? 6, what is the balance of your mortgage? 7, how did you arrive at your price? 8, how do you feel about owner financing? 9, where would you like to move to? 10, when would you like to be in your new home? 11, which is the most important to you? Price, timing, or convenience? 12, what would it do to your plans if you did not sell? 13, who else have you talked to about the sale of your home? 14, would you need the money from this home to buy the next one? And finally, 15, you'll hear me say this in class, question 15, how comfortable are you with this one? What would it take to put your home on the market today? Let me say it again. What would it take to put your home on the market today? You know, for most people, that's uncomfortable. But it's very important that we understand something here. If you don't ask for the order, you may as well not ask any of the other questions. In fact, no seller wants to list with a wimpy agent. They're expecting you to ask. The question is, have you built enough value so that when you ask the question, that they're comfortable with it as well? Okay, let me just take a couple more minutes just to go over those questions again so they make sense to you. The main reason we ask all of them really is just to get them to start talking. You know, for example, when did you first start thinking about selling your house? Well, you know, most people love to talk about themselves and their plans. And when you get to number 2, how long have you lived here? It's really not only just to get them to start talking, but to see if they're kind of leveling with you in some of the facts. You know, if they bought this home on MLS, you're going to already know the facts, but it's just to get them to open up and see if they're comfortable with you. Number 2 and 3 kind of work together. How long have you lived here? What was your original purchase price? Number 4, what improvements have you made? Another spot where you would need to know for price. If there's one thing you could change, you're just planting a seed here. They're thinking, well, we're moving because we need a bigger kitchen. Maybe a buyer coming in might look at it the same way. What is the balance of your mortgage? You know, if they're comfortable, they'll just probably tell you, give you a kind of a round figure, and you need to know, of course, if you're going to get paid. How did you arrive at your price? Number 7, some people say, well, you know, what price? Well, if you back up, a few lessons ago, we said on the phone, you ask them, what price range home do you live in? Some people will just tell you, you know, and, you know, if their price is quite high, then with some facial expressions, you may have that confusing look, you know, how did you arrive at your price? And they might say, oh, no, we were thinking that, or we were just kidding, or whatever. If they didn't give you a price on the phone, obviously you probably wouldn't answer that question, or ask that question, 8, how do you feel about owner financing? Some people would just say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. But, you know, realistically, it comes down to 2 reasons why they don't want to do owner financing. One is they need all their money, right, for the move. All their equity. The other one is they don't really understand it. They're uncomfortable. I would not stop and start explaining at this point. What you could do is just say, after we talk about your plans a little bit more, I can tell you how that works if you want. Because the main thing you need to do with these questions, as I said, if you back up, is you need to ask the question, reconfirm their answer, and write it down and move on to the next question. You only have so long to ask these questions. Where was I? Okay, so we have, how do you feel about owner financing? What about this? Where would you like to move to? It's just to get them to talk and so you can understand their plans. Remember, you want to find out what they want to accomplish. When would you like to be in your new home? Same thing. Which is most important to you, price, timing, or convenience? Let me explain this a little bit here, because when we're talking to somebody, when we just met them, we're on the phone with them, price is always the number 1 factor. At least that's what they say. If you could take a few minutes and explain to them the difference between timing and convenience, you may find out that price, still being a major factor, may not be the most important. Now, some people move just based on price. Market's up, market's down, right? Some people move because they have a life and they need a bigger place for the kids, smaller place. Maybe they're being relocated for their job. So they might have to be in their new home by the time school starts. Or they may need the possession dates to line up so it's really convenient. Do you see the importance of that now? Number 12, what would it do to your plans if your home didn't sell? They're like, well, you think it won't sell? Here's the neat thing is that, you know, you haven't even seen the house yet. You're sitting at the kitchen table and she can go, well, you know what? I haven't seen your house yet. It looks pretty good from here, but just in case it didn't, do you have any idea what you might do? Number 13, who else have you talked to about the sale of your home? Typically, a lot of agents will say, I don't know if I want to ask that because, you know, it'll make them think of interviewing a couple other agents or talking to somebody about a private sale. Believe me, they're thinking about it anyways. The best time to deal with any of their objections or concerns is now, not as you ask the questions, of course. You park that, you write down the answer, hold on to it. You're going to find problem and things like that, and you're going to deal with it a little later. But on this appointment is when you want to deal with it. Number 14, would you need the money from this home to buy the next one? Of course, that's pretty well self-explanatory. And 15, again, was just to ask for the order. What would it take to put your home on the market today? Make a commitment to asking question 15. Okay, so let's see where we are. Page 1, we went and showed you how to do the sales process. We had those 7 parts there. And then page 2, we had the series of questions. Now, page 3. Now, I'm giving you page for page, but some of you may have 2 pages for my one, or maybe more, because when I get into the marketing plan, for example, that may vary from 6 pages to 16. I don't know, but 16 is a little much. The second part on the sales process, page 3, is to preview the property. Now, that page just needs to be a visual to remind us that it's time to go preview the property. Like I said, the listing presentation is designed to keep you on track. So, on the page that shows previewing the property, you might have an input form that's just laminated, that's a reminder that it's time to grab maybe your clipboard, grab your input form, and take the seller with you and go through the house. Now, the first thing you need to do is have the seller participate. Have them participate with you in maybe getting some measurements. Now, some people will say, well, you know what, sometimes I go twice. I come back and do the measurements. And then again, if you go back a lesson, you'll see that, or 2 lessons actually, you'll see that we talked about the 1-stop and the 2-stop. And this is the key here, is that when you're letting them know the sales process, you might say something like this. In step 2, we're going to preview the property. And if you don't mind, I'd like to take a few measurements. And I'm just going to be doing a worksheet at this point. It'll save us some time in case we decide to move forward. And if not, I can just leave you a copy. Fair enough? And they'll say, most of the time, they'll say, yeah, sure, that's fine. So the first thing you want to do is get the seller to participate. The second thing is, like I said, fill out the input form as you go, including measurements, and add anything you can. So ask a lot of should I questions. That's part 3, is ask a lot of should I questions. So you're walking around and you say, should I include the fridge? And they say yes or no. Should I include the stove? Yes or no. Should I include the drapes? Yes or no. Point out the repairs with style. Now, you haven't got the listing yet. So for you to point out every single repair and say, this has got to be fixed, this has got to be fixed, this timing isn't right for that. What you need to do is look at them. And I wish you could see me right now, because if you saw, let's say, a crack in a window or a stain in the ceiling, best thing for you to do is you have your clipboard, you have your input form, you're walking along, you stop, you look up, and you look at the sellers, just silently. And if they make a comment like this, saying, you know, should we paint that? Because maybe the stain is, or maybe the leak is repaired, but the stain's still there. You just say, I would, and move on. Write it down. What if they don't say anything? Again, you just kind of looked at them. So if they don't say nothing, just go back to your notes and write something down. Now, if you come across a squeaky floorboard, you can have a little bit of fun with that, because you'll be walking past it and it goes, stop, look down at the floorboard, go back and forth, look over at the seller, and they might say, do you think we should brace that? And what would you say? I would. That's right. Okay. So point out all the repairs with style, and don't tell them to do this, do that, do this, do that. Number 5, as you're going through the property, you need to evaluate it logically from all different points of view. Now, you know what? Watch out, because I've seen licensees walk into a home and go, ooh, wow, boy, is this ever beautiful. And they say so much that all the sellers can do in their mind is go cha-ching, 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 right? Well, the top producer does this, and that's you. They just repeat it, and they write it down. So if there's any repairs that were done, if there's anything they're going to fix, they repeat it, they write it down, all right? Now, page 4, our marketing plan. Now, there's 5 sections, and in page 4, you can put all 5 sections just to kind of like a quick overview, and then behind that, you want to have those sections. That's where you're going to have more pages. The marketing plan is to show, for you, to show them how you get the job done. And by the way, when you build value, it protects your commissions 90% of the time. You know, when you get later on to the presentation, you go, any questions? When they see what it takes and what you do to market a home, some of them won't ask, you know what, will you cut your commissions? So the first section in your marketing plan will be something that shows how you put the home on the market, how you put it on MLS. Maybe something saying that you introduce your home to the realtors because we all work together. Number 2, the next section would be to expose the home to the public, in the newspaper. And you may have 10 different ways to do that to make sure that the public knows the home is for sale. Number 3, another little section that basically shows how you separate the lookers from the buyers, pre-qualifying them. And you want to let them know that you're going to pre-qualify all your buyers. And the reason you do that is this. There's no reason for lookers to come through a house, especially for them. Every time you call and say, we've got an appointment and we'll be there at 7, you're going to ask them if they can leave. Before they leave, they got to straighten up and all that stuff and just, pick up the newspapers, move the shoes around. The house may not even be that dirty, but they just want to straighten it out a bit. For them to find out later that person couldn't even qualify, I don't know. I don't think they'd be too happy about that. Would you agree? Number 4, a section that shows how you professionally show the features of their home, explaining benefits of the home and how you watch for buying signals. These are just good examples. Number 5, that section could be handling all the details, how you have one-stop shopping in place, and how you negotiate on their behalf, because third-party negotiating always saves money. And at the end of the marketing plan, have a spot that just says it all begins with our relationship. So, right there, you might even want to ask them, can we put this to work for you today? Now, a top producer is closing all the time, not only in appearance and how they carry themselves, but eye contact, facial expressions, like I said, voice inflections, and they will ask for the order in different ways throughout the presentation. Now, I want to give you some other reasons why a seller would list with your company. And some of this stuff would be for your marketing plan or for pre-list. Remember, if it's anything about you or yourself, you'd like to sell yourself in advance with your pre-list. So here's a couple of reasons. Could be a past customer or referral, and some visuals you might want to put together in the back of your presentation or for your pre-list, or testimonials, referral letters, and sold photos. The second reason, and these are just examples I came up with, is your company identity and location, and some visuals you might have, or logos and maps, or your company photo. Third reason, how about national advertising? Could be newspaper, television, websites. Fourth reason I have here is a marketing plan or your experience. Your marketing plan is an incredible visual. And the years in business and deals per year that you do is another great way to show experience. Remember, you're just going to build on your strengths. Let's say, that makes me think about something right now. What if you're brand new? Now, one of the things you could say to somebody, if somebody says, "Are you brand new?" Obviously, if you are, say yes. And then they'll say, "Well, maybe we're looking for somebody with a little more experience." You can say, "Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I've only been in business about 6 months, but the office I'm in has a ton of experience. And I can assure you, any questions you have, I will always find the answer for you. When you list with me, it's like listing with the whole office. In fact, it's like listing with everybody at the real estate board. But my whole office is on board to sell your property. So you've got the experience there from the office, but you do get one extra ingredient. Since I'm new, I'm very energetic and very excited about marketing your home. In fact, yours is the only one I have, so I'm going to spend 100% of my time on your listing. Good, huh? Number 5. Market share. What's a good visual? Graphs and charts. 6, systems. What are some systems we use? What's some good visuals? MLS, the logo, let's say. What about your listing process? That's 7 steps that we went over. What a great little visual just to show them what you're going to do before you do it. And finally, 7, extra services and products. The visuals, maybe a list of your lawyer, the lender, the movers. In other words, one-stop shopping. All right, well, there's a few other things I want to point out to get you to master your listing presentation. And there's a presentation method, 4 components that I'd like you to be aware of. I call it fact, benefit, close. And then there's actually a takeaway as well. While you're going through the marketing plan, you have to understand that if you're talking to inattention, or if you're not telling them what's in it for them, in their mind, every time you say, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, they're thinking, so what? And if you could have that in your mind thinking, every time I give them a fact, which is the first part of the components, fact, which is a true statement, you have to make sure that you give them the benefit or what's in it for them. Let me give you an example here. Number 1 is fact, a true statement. let's do this. ABC Realtor is a strong supporter of the MLS system. Good fact, right? Number 2 is the benefit. What's in it for them? Remember, they listen to radio station WIFM. What's in it for me? And your dialogue might be something like, which means to you that when you list with ABC Realty and Dwayne Groom, you are listing with all the companies and agents in the whole city. Good or good? And then we want to close on that, though. That's the third part. So remember I said, fact, benefit, close. And what you want to do is in your close, you want to say, you can see the benefit, can't you? And this is to get them to start saying yes. So let me say it all at once. ABC Realty is a strong supporter of the MLS system, which means to you that when you list with ABC Realty and Dwayne Groom, you are listing with all the companies and agents in the city. You can see the benefit to this, can't you? And again, if you can nod your head up and down, and you can get them to nod their head more, and you start to get them to say yes, you're one step closer to getting a signature. The fourth part of that presentation method is the takeaway. And sometimes you have to do this. Imagine if you didn't use the MLS system. There could be an agent right now that has the right buyer, and they wouldn't even know that your home is up for sale. Now, you wouldn't want that to happen to you, would you? That's the takeaway. Now, you do not have to do this in any specific order. In fact, you're better off not to. That way you'll sound more natural, because every time you give them a fact, we use the MLS system. We qualify all our buyers. We put it in the newspaper. We put it on the internet. When you just start doing it over and over, you're going to sound kind of like you're canned in a way, because you're going fact, benefit, close. You can mix it up a little bit. You can actually tell them their benefit first and how you do that. You could actually take it away, then close. But you get the idea. Let me show you another tool that you're going to have in the back of your listing presentation that will actually knock out the competition. Sometimes when you're on a listing appointment and you work your way down the steps, you're going to get to a spot where you're going to say, any questions? And they're going to hit you with any of their concerns or maybe their objections on why they don't want to put their home on the market today. Maybe it's to interview a couple of more agents. And we've put together here for you the comparison chart. And the way it would work is this. First thing you would do is there's a process that we're going to show you how to handle objections. You're going to follow that process. And before I show you that in the lesson to follow, I want to just show you how the company comparison chart will work. You'll take out the comparison chart. It's a visual. And you're going to explain to them how you put it together. You're going to say, you know what, I feel like I've done the shopping for you. I really have, because what I did was when I first was licensed, I decided to shop around for a broker. And I'll tell you, I chose this one here, ABC Realty, because they had the best services for the job. And the other companies that I went to, which seem to also be in the marketplace, are on this comparison chart. And on the left here, as you can see, we have all the services. Now, 70%, just so you know, 70% of the services down the list on the left-hand side are the same, especially with the real estate companies. ABC Realty, XYZ Realty, BS Realty, by the way, that's Bob Smith, and they're all the same. Now, 30% is the special stuff that you do. And you will use your FBC, which again is fact, benefit, close, on your individual stuff. Now, when you take a look, let's say from a bird's eye view, and you're looking down at the company comparison chart, you have to understand that your column has to be checked off all the way down. And all the other ones, as long as they're missing one or more, then it's going to all make sense. So when you're talking to them, you're going to say, so we've got it all here, it's all laid out. Now I want to ask you a question. Which one of these services do you think will sell your home? And they might say, well, probably MLS. You'll say it's possible. The thing is you just don't know exactly where a buyer is going to come from. And you take your pen. What you'll do is you'll just start circling blank spots, and you'll say, well, it could be a buyer could come from here or here. And I'm circling. I wish you could see me, but I'm circling as I'm talking all these empty spots. You have none. The next company has one or two. The next one has two or three. The private sale, the help you sell, or the for sale by owner has a whole bunch. And then you'll say, let's look at it another way here. Let me ask you, if you were to hop on a plane from New York to Los Angeles, and you had a choice between first class and coach, but it was the exact same price, which one would you pick? What do you think their answer would be? obviously they'd say, well, I'll take first class. And you say, well, why? Remember, you're just trying to keep them talking and things like that. And they say, well, you get free this, and you get on the plane first, off the plane first, all this kind of stuff. And you'll say, exactly. And you know what? Here's the same thing. I think the choice is obvious. Why don't you go first class? And you kind of point at all of your checks and your company name. Now, on the bottom of that, you also want to have a broker approval. So you know what? I don't want you just to put together the comparison chart and just start using it. There's a little bit of research that needs to be done, and you must get broker approval. And you must have an as-of date as well. Okay, let me take a minute again to just review the sales process, the listing presentation. In our first page, it had the 7 areas. Number 1 was series of questions, 2, preview of the property, 3, marketing plan, 4, price and estimate and net, 5, explain the forms, 6, address any questions, 7, mutual decision, right? And I want to take us back to number 4. We did the marketing plan. We gave you another tool, but now I want to talk about price and estimate and net. The net sheet is very crucial at this time to be able to use. You know, what your net sheet is going to look like, we gave you a sample in the class. You're going to have the client's name on there, their date and address. You're going to put in a price, and you're going to start taking off what they have to pay upon closing. You would have maybe a first mortgage. By the way, sometimes in class I'll say, what's the most expensive thing to take off first? And I hear agents start saying commissions. It's almost like it's the first thing on our minds. But you know what? When you think about it, usually the mortgage is a lot more than the commissions, if you know what I mean. So I wonder who is our own worst enemy, or if we're not our own worst enemy. It just seems like it's such an issue to us. Yet when we explain commissions to the seller, sometimes it's not that big of an issue. Now, I'm getting off a little bit here, but it's just an important thing. Anyways, back on track to the net sheet. So you take off the first mortgage, take off the second mortgage, commissions, closing fees, taxes, and there's probably a few other things that you can figure out. In the class, as part of your homework assignment, I asked you to create your own net sheet, and I gave you a little bit of an idea and a few examples. Now, I believe that this is like doing the negotiations in advance, in a way, and you should have this available upon the offer presentation as well. So when you're doing the net sheet, have 2 copies. And on the bottom, underneath the subtotal and the final net, you have the owner's signature and the agent, your signature. You have 2 copies, one for them and one for yourself. Now, in a lesson down the road, we're going to get into price. We have a whole lesson on that. So right now, I just wanted to make sure that you knew how to create the net sheet and have it in your listing presentation and ready. We're going to show you how to A, present price, B, and how to establish price. Okay, so that page is for number 4, price and estimate and net. So that's the net sheet. Number 5, which is explain all the forms, is a visual reminder. What would be a good visual reminder for you so that you knew to explain the forms? Well, I would say probably a listing agreement. And in the back, maybe you've got theirs pre-printed in advance as much as possible. The 6th part was address any questions. Now, the pages go in a different order of the process, because you have to remember that the process itself was the first page and the series of questions was the second page, and so on and so on and so on. So in your notes, they'll be off by 1. Address any questions. What's a good visual reminder to address any questions? Well, maybe it's just a big question mark, I guess. And then it will remind you to ask the best closing question ever, which is any questions. And the final part to your listing presentation is a mutual decision. Now, what would be a good visual reminder? Just say, well, it's time for us to make a decision. Maybe it's a handshake. The listing presentation is designed to keep you on track. Remember that. So let's get into our weekly activity, and then I have a little poem I want to share with you. The first thing is you want to go into the office early, which is 9 a.m. still, prospect 5 days a week. The second thing is book a minimum of 3 listing appointments each week. The third thing is keep track. Remember this important one. Every week it's the same. Keep track of your production on your program production page A7. 4. Bring in your completed weekly report, page A6, signed by your broker manager, handed in to your assistant team captain no later than, what time? 9:30 a.m. Number 5, add another 25 names to your sphere of contact list, and again, we're going somewhere with that. 6, create your listing presentation. Get a binder. Nice one. And in there, put in the pages. We can build on it. For example, the marketing plan might be more than one page, but let's get started. Let's take it page per page and have a section in the back that we can start putting some of our visuals in. Bring it to class. I'll try to have a table set up where you can set it down and I can take a look at it, okay? Number 7, again, just a reminder to put the 5 sections in the marketing plan. Number 8, reproduce the comparison chart. Get it approved by your broker manager and put it again in the back of your listing presentation. Have a little section in there, a little tab where it's back there and you know it's there, but you only take out what you need. Number 9, schedule a minimum of 1 free day off. I prefer 2. Some of you prefer 3, right? 10, listen to lesson 4 CD a minimum of 3 times. Let me go into a poem, and it's called The Contest Called Life. The contest lasts for moments, though the training has taken years. It wasn't the winning alone that was worth the work and the tears. The applause will be forgotten, the prize will be misplaced, but long, hard hours of practice will never be a waste. For trying to win, you build a skill. You learn that winning depends on will. You never grow by how much you win. You only grow by how much you put in. So any new challenge you've just begun, put forward your best effort because you have already won. So we'll see you next week.